Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to Granny B's house. Are you having a good day? No, I hope so. Granny B's having a pretty good day. And I just know you're remembering to be kind to those people around you because that's one thing we can do to make this world a better place. No matter how old or how big or how small or how young, we can all do that. One act of kindness that makes the world a better place. Well, I want to read you a story today that I have mixed feelings about. I didn't want this story to end. I wanted there to be one or two more pages so I could hear more about what was happening. So it's a story that was written when Granny B was 3 years old. Yeah, 1952 this story was written, and it comes from Charlotte's Web, which you've probably heard of, and it's called Some Pig. It's written by E.B. White, and it's illustrated by Maggie Canine, and it's got some really old-fashioned pictures in it that just warm my heart from the time I was growing up. All right, Granny B's going to get out of the way and stop talking. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke him, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning, as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held the bottle for him. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, Fern jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him again at supper time and again just before going to bed. Mrs. Arable gave him a feeding around noontime each day when Fern was away at school. Wilbur loved his milk, and he was never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was allowed to live in a box near the stove in the kitchen. Then, when Mrs. Arable complained, he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Mr. Arable fixed a small yard, especially for Wilbur, under an apple tree, and gave him a large wooden box full of straw with a doorway cut in it so he could walk in and out as he pleased. "Won't he be cold at night?" asked Fern. "No," said her father. "You watch and see what he does." Carrying a bottle of milk, Fern sat down under the apple tree inside the yard. Wilbur ran to her and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Wilbur was poking the straw with his snout. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. Fern was enchanted. It relieved her mind to know that her baby would sleep covered up and would stay warm. Every morning after breakfast, Wilbur walked out to the road with Fern and waited with her till the bus came. She would wave goodbye to him, and he would stand and watch the bus until it vanished around a turn. While Fern was in school, Wilbur was shut up inside the yard. But as soon as she got home in the afternoon, she would take him out, and he would follow her around the place. If she went into the house, Wilbur went too. If she went upstairs, Wilbur would wait at the bottom step until she came down again. If she took her doll for a walk in the doll carriage, Wilbur followed along. Sometimes on these journeys, Wilbur would get tired, and Fern would pick him up and put him in the carriage alongside the doll. He liked this, and if he was very tired, he would close his eyes and go to sleep under the doll's blanket. He looked cute when his eyes were closed because his lashes were so long. The doll would close her eyes too, and Fern would wheel the carriage very slowly and smoothly so as not to wake her infants. One warm afternoon, Fern and Avery put on bathing suits and went down to the brook for a swim. Wilbur tagged along at Fern's heels. When she waded into the brook, Wilbur waded in with her. He found the water quite cold, too cold for his liking. So while the children swam and played and splashed water at each other, Wilbur amused himself in the mud along the edge of the brook, where it was warm and moist and delightfully sticky and oozy. Every day was a happy day, and every night was peaceful. Wilbur was what the farmers call a spring pig, which simply meant that he was born in the springtime. When he was 5 weeks old, Mr. Arable said he was now big enough to sell and would have to be sold. Fern broke down and wept, but her father was firm about it. Wilbur's appetite had increased. He was beginning to eat scraps of food in addition to milk. Mr. Arable was not willing to provide for him any longer. He had already sold Wilbur's 10 brothers and sisters. "He's got to go, Fern," he said. "You've had your fun raising a baby pig, but Wilbur is not a baby any longer, and he's got to be sold." "Call up the Zuckermans," suggested Mrs. Arable to Fern. "Your Uncle Homer sometimes raises a pig, and if Wilbur goes there to live, you can walk down the road and visit him as often as you like." "How much money should I ask for him?" "Well," said her father, "he's a runt. Tell your Uncle Homer you've got a pig you'll sell for $6 and see what he says." Soon it was arranged. Fern phoned and got her Aunt Edith, and her Aunt Edith hollered for Uncle Homer, and Uncle Homer came in from the barn and talked to Fern. When he heard the price was only $6, he said he would buy the pig. The next day, Wilbur was taken from his home under the apple tree and went to live in a manure pile in the cellar of the Zuckerman's barn. And that's where the story ends. I want to hear more about Fern and Wilbur. I want to hear about their visits. So, I guess we're not going to know that unless we watch a movie about Charlotte's Web. Is Wilbur in there as an adult pig? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to do some research and find out. But it was a wonderful story about a little girl who got to raise a baby pig. I just didn't like the way it ended. So if you have books that you love the story, but you don't like the ending, what do you do about it? Maybe you can imagine. Maybe you can imagine how it would end. Maybe you can imagine Fern and Wilbur playing together. I don't know. But I do know that Granny B loves you. And Granny B wants you to come back and see me again real soon. I'll read you another story. Okay? Bye-bye.